the astrology is adapted from many different cultures, not only India, but also from Persia, from India, from China. So there's very slight difference, in the calculations, how the calculations are done. There are some years that Mongolia, Buryat, and Kalmyks all follow on the same day. There's some years that be 1 month apart or maybe 2 weeks apart. So it differs. So it's not a major issue. And not only that, as a democratic system, because Buddhism is a very democratic religion, we go with whatever the majority celebrate. And not only that, if the Buryats are celebrating 1 month in advance, that's good. There's nothing wrong with it. If the Tuvans are celebrating 1 month later, there's nothing wrong with that. We should all rejoice and celebrate in that. Why? Because regardless of what our traditions are, number one, we're all followers of Buddha. Buddha himself. So, there's no such thing as Kalmyk Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism. Because when Buddha when Buddha himself taught, he never differentiated, he never discriminated, he never wrote anything separate and said, this is for the Kalmyks, this is for the Mongols, this is for the Tibetans, this is for the Japanese, this is for so and so on. What differentiates between Tibetan, Mongolian, and the other Himalayan regions and other parts is difference in culture. As religion, as Buddhism as a religion, all is one. Buddhism as a culture is separate. Now, a Japanese Buddhist and we Buddhists, we are same. Because we are followers of the same Buddha himself. Japanese Buddhist culture and Kalmyk Buddhist culture, those are two separate things. So that's very important to understand. For many years, I've heard this, word where people say, oh, this is our Kalmyk Buddhism. And I say, well, what is Kalmyk Buddhism? What do you mean by Kalmyk Buddhism? What is that? There is a Kalmyk Buddhist culture. There is Buryat Buddhist culture. There is Tuva Buddhist culture. But as a religion, all is one. Regardless of whether you're Japanese, Chinese, Korean, or whatever, so on. So that is very important for all of you to remember. So today, in Buddhism, of course, just like Christianity, it has many traditions. Like in Christianity, there's Catholic, Baptist, Lutheran, and so on. Just like in Buddhism, there is Zen Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, Tantrayana Buddhism, and so on. So our form of Buddhism, or Tibetan Buddhism, Tibetan form of Buddhism, is the Vajrayana tradition, or the Mahayana. Mahayana means the great vehicle. Why we say vehicle? Because it's a force. Force towards what? Towards enlightenment. And based on that, we have many different deities, many different colors that symbolize and represent many things. And while we are doing meditation is done in many forms as well. And these colors, the form, the posture, and so on, they symbolize many different things. So today, if you look at this particular tanka here, you see Tsongkhapa in the middle. this is what we call the lineage tree. Meaning that from Buddha's time, Buddhism is how old? It's 2,550 plus years. So how was that passed on? How was that lineage passed on? It was from Buddha, given to his disciples. His disciples became teachers. They passed it on to the younger generation. They became teachers, and it passed on and passed on and passed on. And that's what we call the lineage. So, to the point where it was all transmitted to Tsongkhapa Gyaltsen, who is the founder of, they call it the Yellow Hat sect, but I don't really like to call it, I don't like to label a sect based on the color of a hat, which is really not, I find it disrespectful. But anyway, so Tsongkhapa, and the reason we call it the lineage tree is because of all the great masters from Nyingma, from Kagyu, and Sakya. All of those lineage have been transmitted orally, oral transmission, initiations, all those transmissions have been given to Tsongkhapa himself. So if you look at below Tsongkhapa, then there's many forms of deities and bodhisattvas. And we have something at the very bottom row, which we call Dharma protectors, which are in wrathful forms. We have peaceful and wrathful forms. And many of the Dharma protectors, what we call is Suma. And within the Suma, within the Dharma protectors, they are protectors who made a pledge to protect the lineage of Buddha from any harm. So it doesn't mean that if somebody is trying to destroy or harm Buddhism, that they are going to go out and kill or be violent. That's not the case. Through their compassion, through their love, and through their kindness, that is how they protect the Dharma. They have very wrathful features, which represents our ignorance, our arrogance. And every time we do recite these prayers, and when we see these wrathful deities, we visualize how ugly our ignorance and how arrogant we are. And when you see lotuses, for example, like if you look at Tara,